Tom?
Hello and welcome everybody. If we could, like to call the meeting to order, and Clerk Allison, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Trustee Conboy. Here. Trustee McFarrell, Mayor.
Here.
Trustee Kennedy is absent. Trustee Metz is absent. Trustee O'Laughlin.
Here.
Trustee Wittenberg.
Here.
And Mayor Hinshaw.
Here, thank you. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everybody. We have agendas up front if you didn't get one. At this point in the agenda is the mayor's report. First up is Sterigenics. The court system seems to be allowing them to reopen. If they do some construction and limit their ethylene oxide emissions to 85 pounds, as I understand it. I personally not sure that they can be trusted, but they have to prove that they've cut the emissions down that low, so we will see where that goes, but it does look like they have the potential to be reopening. Under the 294 update, they have been doing some pretty major tree clearing along the 294 on their right-of-way. And then upcoming public hearing, next month, the planning and zoning, which is on the first Tuesday of the month, will have a public hearing on adult cannabis in the village and about sheds.
We have a request for a special use variance for a shed on Wolf Road.
All right, and then the sidewalk update, it didn't make the agenda, but I want to give a quick update that for the last half a year, we have been waiting for the Cook County Invest in Cook results to come. They were due in August, and they are engineering firm. This is where we got a $68,000 grant from Invest in Cook, and the village, were putting in $20,000. We got preliminary information, but there is some overlap with the Invest in Cook and the Phase 1 for Wolf Road that we approved as a board last month. So Strand, our engineer for the village, is working with the county. They don't want to, one, jeopardize anything in Phase 1, and then they also don't want to double bill the county if we did the Invest in Cook as it was initially rolled out almost a year ago. They could pay for, or we could pay for that and then get reimbursed, and then when they did the Phase 1, the county could say this is duplicate, we want the money back or something. So they're waiting a little bit to figure that out. Hopefully that will be in short order. Does that sound right, John? And then lastly, I would like to encourage everybody here, if you haven't signed up for Smart 911, to do that. We have about 698 people on the email system, and that is the notification. Let's say your block was out of water or there was an Amber Alert or something. That is how we, at the village, does the emergency communication to you. So Again, if you have not done that, please look into Smart 911. All right, with that, on the agenda is time for public comments, and we are broadcasting this on Comcast Channel 6 and Facebook Live, right, Nick? And YouTube. So I would ask that if you want to make a comment, please come to the podium so that people that are watching this either now at home or later when they look at the video, they can hear you. So would anybody like to address the board? There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting, but Patrick, I think you were first.
Hello and good evening, everyone. I am Patrick Ferguson. I reside at 48 Elmwood Court, obviously Indian Head Park. An issue that brings me here this evening, there was recently a dog attack not far from my home. Screams of a woman actually brought me outside of my home. My home was completely closed up. Windows, doors were closed. The air was on, and I could still hear frantic cries for help. So I posted something on the Next Door Neighbor townhome site that I'm the lead of for Acacia and Wilshire Green, and I was actually floored by the number of comments and responses. So I guess my first question would be this incident that just happened a couple of evenings ago. Does anyone know what type of dog it was? Can the police respond to that?
Do you want to?
I will. We believe the dog to be a pit bull. That is the report that I received.
Okay. The other additional comments I got on this website is that there were 2 additional dog attacks, I believe, on the street Westwood, which is the block behind me or south of the block I live on, and that there were 2 attacks from the same animal that was not on a leash, that was in a garage with the homeowner. I'm wondering what type of dog that was and whether or not the investigation regarding those attacks are finished.
I do not believe the investigations are finished. I believe that there were 2 separate instances, not 3 as you alluded to, and it is under a police investigation as we speak.
It's my understanding that the attack with the pit bull near my home is one, and that there were 2 separate attacks with the same dog on the other street.
No, the chief is indicating no, and I'm only aware of 2 attacks in total.
Okay.
Again, this matter is under investigation. We are aware of it, so.
Okay, then I guess since there's open investigations, not much more can be said or commented at this time. So you'll be seeing me again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
So my dog was one of the dogs that was attacked on Westwood Court, and that was a second incident. One was anonymously called a week before by the same animal, and then I was walking my dog leashed, and the attacker dog came out of the garage and attacked my dog for about 3 minutes. I was screaming, calling for help. I have 2 little kids, 2 doors down from this lady and her dog. She has her garage open 24/7, and I'm scared out of my mind now. Every morning, I have to tell my kids to stay in the garage until I open the car door to let my kids into their car. I just don't feel safe in our neighborhood anymore. I would like a dangerous report done on this dog. The fact that I want to leave the community where I've been apart for 2 years and have known the community and residents here is just beyond my belief, and it's really sad, and this is the second time this dog has attacked. Thank you.
I'm very sorry to hear that, and the chief of police is here, and so Bob, I don't know if you need any information or not, and hold on one second, but I believe that we are a safe village, and I think we can get back there. Hopefully, you will feel that way in time. I know right now you don't, but anyway, the chief is here, and maybe you can talk after the meeting, but appreciate your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Wendy Mulligan. I'm the person that was screaming at the top of her lungs the night before last because my Cavalier was attacked severely. I was right in front of the clubhouse, just going on to the intersection at Acacia Circle, and had both my Cavaliers. I have a puppy that's six pounds and another one that's 22 pounds, and the dog came, the pit bull came out of nowhere from behind a bush across the street, and the only thought that entered my mind was, I hope this is a friendly dog. And that's all that happened. It's all that went through my mind, and before that even finished, the dog was on top of my dog, my 22-pound Cavalier, completely mulling its neck, his whole shoulder, his arm, everything. He was just going back and forth like this with the dog. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't break the bite. I'm screaming. Bystanders came by. A man came and helped. Between the two of us, we got it apart. I thought she was dying in my arms. And everybody came, and, you know, someone took me to my car to bring her to the hospital immediately. And I went to file my report, the police officer wanted my side of the story today. You know, the owner rescued the dog 3 months ago. The owner has children herself. This was not, I've been a dog owner my whole life. Big dogs, small dogs, all kinds of dogs, rescue dogs. This was nothing like I've seen. That dog had one thing in mind, was to kill my dog. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt. And it was no different than if we were walking up the street and a coyote was right across the street. There was nothing I could do, nothing. I don't understand why or what we're gonna do that would change this. That dog had gotten out of her deck, jumped the fence, something. You know, she's a wonderful woman, probably. I don't know if she's here tonight. I have no idea. I don't know who she is. She's, reached out to me, but I haven't had the courage to talk to her yet. This is unacceptable. Wildlife, coyotes, we don't have control over. We have control over family pets. What are we going to do? I had to come over here tonight. Yesterday, I didn't even want to walk. And that's all I do is walk around outside. Everybody's seen me, I'm sure. I'm outside constantly. We do have rights. I asked the officer today that I spoke with an attorney. We can ask our chief of police to go to the state's attorney and petition the court to put the dog down because it's vicious. We have the right to do that. There is no doubt in my mind this is a vicious animal. No one would feel safe if they saw what I went through. No one in this room. Helpless on a busy street intersection in Acacia at 5:30. Perfectly beautiful afternoon. What are we gonna do?
Well, I'm sorry for what happened. And to answer your question, what are we gonna do? I think you did the first thing, which was file the police report. And
I didn't, I wasn't even, I was at the hospital.
Oh, okay.
She did, I believe, or the police were on the scene because they
And
heard it.
to the young lady in the back, I would ask that if this happens, either with this dog or any dog, please file a police report. I think that's first line of what we do. You are right about the vicious animal. Pat, if that's something that you could look into, maybe work with the chief on that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. As the mayor indicated, it's a factual issue that has to be proven up in court, so
No doubt.
the more evidence that we have in terms of police reports, prior occurrences, et cetera, will help. I've been through this before. I've had dogs put down in other towns that I represent, so I know what it takes to make this happen, but unfortunately, it's going to take you having to somewhat relive this from time to time in terms of relating it to the police department, as well as possibly testifying in court, depending on whether or not the owner wants to fight it. But that's the first step. Under the Illinois State Animal Control Act, we can then work with the county to get this process going. But if we could get that cooperation to get that first step going, which it sounds like you're willing to do, and you're taking the time to be here tonight, which we appreciate, we can get that going for you and try to expedite this as much as possible.
I'm not I've never even really encountered pit bulls all that much, but I don't know if it's a pit bull issue or if it's just I feel like it's just the act of the mauling, the actual attack. I mean, my attack, her attack, there was a third attack. I don't know if Libby reported it, but
Well, if there was a third attack, there are, under the statute, there's 2 or 3, it
Right.
does matter. So if you do know of people who have experienced
what
it.
does it state is what I want. I mean, I don't know that I saw it. It's just if a dog is I mean, this wasn't just an encounter. This was just
Yeah.
I mean, it was no different than if I-
It's not breed specific, and
Yeah.
it talks about whether or not it was an attack on a person or another companion animal, which
what
this
if it had
would have.
been me? What would we be doing today right now? Would the dog be under? Would the dog be, euthanized?
No.
If it were a human?
They would be impounded, but
I wish that could happen right now. I don't think I don't think the owner has the capability to, if she's gonna leave the dog out on the deck, it's gonna happen, it could be happening right now.
Right. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying the
I
first
understand.
step in the process is to get those police reports on file, as many as we can, and then we can take the next step that we need to do. That's I think the best thing that can come out of tonight is if you know of any, you said Libby, I don't know who that is, but if that person could also file that report, that it's important to get all of that information so that it can be acted upon.
In the meantime, can we talk to the owner and see if she would comply and keep the dog restrained in a reasonable way so people don't have to fear to walk down the street?
Village President and I have just had that conversation, and we'll be taking care of that.
She feels, she's reached out to me and she feels that her dog is no threat because it's good with her dog, her other dog, and her 2 children. She didn't see what I saw, though. There was my dog didn't even look at that dog, and it came, it's unbelievable what happened.
So again, sounds like you will do the police report, correct?
I was at the police station today, and,
Oh, you did? You did do
yeah,
that,
I spoke
okay.
with the
And
officer.
if you know Libby or somehow,
Mhm.
again, as Pat said, if we can get all these filed, that will help with the process.
This dog that did mine was a different dog. There's 2 different
Oh.
pit bulls, yeah,
Okay, but then we should address all of them.
right. All right, thanks.
Pat, hang on, Patrick, hang on, gentlemen. Yeah, please, again, we're recording this, and if you talk from the back, people may not hear what you're talking about.
The boyfriend of the dog that got attacked at Westwood Court. Obviously, I'm a big guy. I feel danger for my life. This is the 2nd time this dog has attacked. First one mine. I'm actually getting a little frustrated even talking to you guys because nothing's happening. 2nd time, if you guys don't do anything, I will. And you guys, can't even talk to you guys.
And I'm sorry that this may have gone on. I just heard about it for the first time today. So I'm not monitoring next door. After I heard about it, I did look at the, I think, 40-something comments. So that's not something I do. I don't think John does that or our chief of police. You know, that's not how we have, not that we can, it's just, it makes it difficult, right? We can't monitor next door Facebook, all those things out there. So again, first time I heard of,
Wouldn't the police do something for the same dog at the same address?
This
Again-
happened on Friday, and we still don't know if this dog has rabies. I have 2 children, and my dog is still living in my house, and I can't have my dog in the same room as my kids because of. it could
again,
bite the
all right,
kid.
so
I still haven't heard
Well,
from the police.
I've got
All right.
to conceal and carry to walk my dog.
Again, because we're broadcasting this, people may not hear your comments, so I may be responding to something that people can't hear. So I'm not sure of all the incidents that we have that have been reported. Chief, would you like to, says Chief Bob Cervenka.
All right, yes. We are aware of 2 different attacks. Both offending dogs were pit bulls. That is all we're aware of at this time. If you're aware of more than that, I ask you to come to the police station, call us, we'll come out to your house, and we'll take a report. As far, the investigation is ongoing, as the mayor had said earlier. Citations are gonna be issued to the owners of the pit bull. We are looking into it, but as so far, there's no history of either of these pit bulls attacking any other dogs or people in the past. If you're aware of any other incidents, I urge you to come forward and let us know.
The dog had no collar, no rabies, and was given 2 months ago. She doesn't have any knowledge of the past history, and I still haven't found out if the dog has rabies.
Okay, well, as I said, I know
Friday.
this is under investigation. I talked to the officer that's handling the investigation today. He's gonna probably wrap it up tomorrow. Hopefully, he'll be in touch with you, and he can let you know all these questions.
Thank you. Amy?
Thanks. Just a quick, and I don't know if the police chief can answer this or not, but in Western Springs, if an animal bites a person or another dog, the dog immediately has to be taken to the vet, show proof to the police department that it has its rabies shot, and even if it does, it has to be in its own home for 10 days, impounded in home. Why doesn't Indian Head Park have something like that? And then the homeowner is fined because the animal bit either a person or another animal.
Are you aware of Western Springs
No,
ordinance?
not, and it's not in our ordinances as far.
Doesn't Cook County Animal Control need to be called every time an animal bites somebody or something?
I've looked that up, that is true.
And I think it needs to be done in the 2 reported cases, and if the 3rd person comes forward, I think they need to do the same thing for that.
My understanding, animal control is only notified if the person is bit, not another animal.
Okay. I would still suggest
But
that we do it.
we
For
can
the sake of
follow
our-
up on that.
For the sake of our homeowners, I think we should do it. You're talking about an area of Acacia that has lots of young kids that are walking, and a dog that's unleashed in its open garage door. The owner or resident might be there, but it has no control over the dog. The dog that bit Wendy's dog was a good 2 blocks away from its home when this happened. So it was out without a leash, with no supervision. To me, that's a person that doesn't know how to control their own dog. And I think that truly needs to be addressed in these cases.
No, I
Thanks.
agree, and again, not that I am in law enforcement, not that I know all our ordinances, but this was something that I just learned about today. So we've talked about the chief, he has an ongoing investigation. I talked with Village Administrator John DeRocher. We'll talk to the owner of the dog. And as far as the other things about the rabies shot, I don't know, but we will find out. The village ordinances have been in place for a long time, and some of them are very old, not to make light of the situation, but John showed where we have in our ordinances that you can't walk a bear in the village.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right, so,
It's no different than what was happening if a bear was there.
But, so, ordinances are not perfect, and it takes, people to update them and make them current. So, as Chief said, it's an ongoing investigation. If you have not filed a report or you have information, please contact the police department so we can gather that information. And then, the chief will work with Pat, on contacting the county. So I think that's where we're going on this. Any other comments? In the back?
David Mraz, 39 Westwood Court. I witnessed the last 15 seconds of the dog attack on Becky. I was sleeping and I heard screams. I thought someone was getting raped, shot, I don't know. It was scary and oh hell, and I woke up and I came to the window, I didn't know what to do. I did not run out there, I feel bad, I probably shouldn't help, but she got free from the dog, and I understand it was a 3-minute attack. And you mentioned it's a nice neighborhood. Yes, I've been living here 15 years. But right now, if you live on Westwood, it is not a nice neighborhood. I can't walk down my street. I can't bring my 88-year-old mother in a wheelchair because that door is always open. That pit bull came out once, and what makes you think that's not going to happen again?
I don't think that.
You know? And then the second question is, if I'm attacked, my wife's attacked, Becky's kids attacked, what do you suggest we do when a pit bull is biting on us? What are our rights? Do we walk around with a stun gun, mace? I mean, just to say it's under investigation. Where do we live? In our house? It's summertime, we want to be outside. I'm not walking outside. I'm a decent-sized guy. What am I going to do against a pit bull? It shows it once. And two, I like the city or the village to pass an ordinance. If a dog bites a dog or a human once, the second time it should be a Class B misdemeanor or greater. There's no reason why. If you can't handle a dog, you shouldn't have it. Just like if you purchase a gun, you got to be safe with it. You got to put it in a way. And just you have a dog like that, that's weaponizing it. You're weaponizing a dog. If you don't like somebody, let the dog run out, and you could scar someone for life. And there's 2 attacks in the weekend. We're not in Chicago. I hear all the news that goes on here. We're in a little town here. 2 pit bull attacks that we know of, and other people. If you go on nextdoor.com, you'll hear other people talking about other incidences. So I think more needs to be done, and I like to have more police presence on Westwood Court. You see the dogs running around. If they're not on a leash, they should issue citations. I know I see it without, and I see no reason why the police shouldn't be given at least a warning the first time and telling people, you got to keep your thing on the leash. And being on the leash doesn't mean 20 feet of rope out. So when someone's walking, you have to walk off the sidewalk to avoid the dog. Being on a leash means you have control of that dog. So many times my wife and I are walking through that park, and there's a dog, and I have to walk in the grass. And the second thing is, what can we tell someone? If you see someone walking with a dog and they're letting approach you, do we have a right to tell them, please do not let that dog get close to me. I'm afraid of them. I don't want them on her. And if they jump on you, is that considered an assault?
Not sure, John.
And you know, it would be nice,
Yes.
though, there needs to be an education of the people around here. A lot of new people, I've been here 15 years, I'm starting to see a lot of things that I've never seen before. And they should be put in the newsletter and stating if you own a dog, you're responsible. That means rabies, getting a tag. What consequences after a dog bites someone if it doesn't have its rabies shot? I mean, there's no jail time for that, there's no fine. I mean, is it optional? Hey, go get a rabies shot. If not, well, that's okay. There's no teeth in there. Why not?
Thank you.
No.
John, we have dog, not license, what's the terminology?
We have tags.
We have tags.
And every animal, every dog should have a dog tag.
And any idea how many tags we issue a year?
Linda,
Linda, do you have an estimate? I can go look it up. But what, 20, 40? I would say 25. So we've issued 25 tags for dogs, and I'm guessing there's more than that in the village. So your point is very valid about communication, about getting your dog registered or a tag. But the chief is here, I'm here, our village attorney is here, John DeRocher, the board is all hearing this. Again, I heard this from a resident 2 o'clock this afternoon, so I had no idea what was going on. Again, not that I'm Superman and I can wave my wand and everything is good, but we do enjoy the village that we live in. I think I speak for everybody on the board that we want our village to be safe. We want our village to be beautiful, and we work hard to do that. And so this is an issue that now is in front of us, and I do believe that we will address it. It may not be as fast as you want, but we have to go through the process, and Pat was filling me in a little bit on working with the county, and, you know, you have to have, as Pat said, information, you have to have the police report, so we just can't call the sheriff, they come out and shoot the animal or something, right? I'm sorry, you gotta go through the steps, and so again, that has started, and any information, please contact the police department, and they will get the reports, and then we will go through, I believe, to a successful conclusion. And the idea is about communicating to the community. That's a good point. The planning and zoning and our ordinances, that's another valid point. So we will work on those. Any other comments? Patrick?
It is my plan and goal to meet with each one of the owners that had an animal attacked. But right now, my thought process is to eventually force the village to pass legislation that any known breed of animal that is vicious in attack, prime example, pit bull, be outlawed and not allowed in this town. I did also do a lot of reading as far as dog attacks on other animals, dog attacks on people. I do know that Illinois is not a one-bite state. There are other states where if an animal attacks a human or another animal, pet dog, one attack and that dog is gone. The owner's not allowed to keep it. I may even look for legislation to be passed, something even to that effect. I do know within Cook County, if an animal attacks at least twice, it is deemed vicious. The animal is no longer allowed to be loose. It must be kept on a leash. It is not allowed to be walked in the neighborhood. It is only allowed to be out to go to a vet or a doctor's appointment. Other than that, it's not allowed out. And if it is out, it has to be muzzled at all times. So I would strongly encourage others that have been part of dog attacks on Westwood Court to come forward to the police, because right now, obviously, nothing can be done with only one report against this other pit bull. But I'm also hearing the pit bull on Westwood Court, the owner has not claimed responsibility, has not apologized to the dog owners, and has not agreed to pay for any medical bills. So to me, that's a completely irresponsible pet owner. They don't belong having that animal. Thank you. One other comment regarding sidewalks, and obviously that's a hot button for a lot of people here. One of my additional concerns, there's talk or a proposal of putting sidewalks from Willow Springs Road to Wolf Road along Joliet Road, along the north side of the street. Without trying to sound as a racist or a horrible person, in my opinion, there's a lot of undesirable people that live in that nursing home. I am forever hounded, whether I'm walking into Walgreens or Willow Hills or UPS or 7-Eleven, with people begging for money, begging for cigarettes. I don't want those kind of people to have access and a sidewalk to walk down to my subdivision. So please think about that also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I welcome community input, Patrick, so I think John and I would be happy to meet with you. You talked about trying to get legislation done. Be happy to talk to you. I know my information, my email, phone number is on the website. I can give you a card afterward. Maybe I did at another meeting, but if you want to talk with us, be happy to do that. You don't need to do that. You can do your own thing, but just offering that.
Welcome dialogue.
And one quick update on the sidewalk that you mentioned. I think the sidewalk plan may be on the board. I can't see what's up, and now it's on the screen. We have talked with our state representatives about a sidewalk along Joliet Road from the Walgreens to Wolf Road. The preliminary estimate was $4 million. We certainly don't have the money for that. It is a IDOT road. I don't think they have the money for that, or if they do, they haven't shown us that money. So it has been talked about. I'd say the odds or the practicality of that happening are slim, but it has been discussed. So that is, much like the other sidewalks that we've been talking about, that is on the list, and that is a major street in our village that we are trying to see what we can do to get a sidewalk on those streets. All right, any other comments? And again, there'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting or near the end of the meeting. Okay, I don't see any other hands. I'm going to move along to the consent agenda. Would somebody like to make a motion for the consent agenda?
I make a motion to establish the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
Thank you, Rita and Sean. I think Sean got in there. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
Trustee Conboy.
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Wittenberg.
Aye.
Motion has passed. Could we have another motion to approve the consent agenda as established?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as established.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brenda and Amy. Any questions or comments about the consent agenda? Maureen, would you want to read the financials, please?
The beginning of August, cash on hand was 2.02 million. Total revenues were 1.4 million. Total payables were 331,000. There were no extraordinary payables. Ending cash at balance at August 31st was 3.1 million. Please note that in September, the first payout to Austin Tyler Construction was made for 729,000.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? You'll notice that we are reappointing Michael Vitale to the Police and Fire Commission. I'd like to take a moment and thank Michael for his service. He has done an outstanding job on the commission. And for anybody that is interested, we don't have any openings now, but we are always looking for people for the Finance Committee, the Planning and Zoning Committee, the Public Works Committee, the Police and Fire, the Heritage Center Committee, and the Economic Development Committee. We are a village that is run, well, not run, residents serve in all these capacities at no compensation. We do have paid staff, so if anybody is interested in getting involved with the village, please let me know or let any trustee know. And what we like, ideally, is if we know in a year we're going to have an opening, I'll pick on planning and zoning. If we have 2 or 3 people interested, then we can talk with them and hopefully select somebody that is interested in that. So, any other questions? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Can.
Clerk Allison?
Trustee O'Laughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Wittenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Conboy.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayor.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion has been approved. All right, Brian, you're finally up. We have, under new business, the 2018-2019 audit presentation. I think we need a motion, right, John? Or is that after the presentation?
Good evening.
You're up.
Well, on behalf of Sickich, I'd like to thank the mayor and the members of the board for inviting us to present the report resulting from the audit of the village for your year ended April 30th, 2019. You should each have the annual financial report. I have prepared some comments for you. Happy to answer questions along the way as well. If you turn in the annual financial report just past the table of contents to page 1, you'll see this is on Sickich letterhead. This is where we've given our opinion on the financial statements. In order for us to give an opinion on the financial statements, we're required to follow 2 sets of standards. One are the auditing standards issued by the AICPA, the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. And those auditing standards tell us the types of procedures we need to perform when we're conducting our audit. The second set of standards are the financial reporting standards. Those standards are issued by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or GASB, and GASB tells us what the statements and the notes to the statements, basically what this document needs to look like in its form. Once we follow those 2 sets of standards, we can then issue an opinion on the financial statements. We're pleased to present an unmodified opinion, and what that means is that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, free of material misstatement. This is the highest level of opinion that you can receive on your financial statements. You'll note on the second page of the opinion a new paragraph this year. The second paragraph there, anytime you adopt a significant GASB standard, as you're required to do, we identify that. So during the year you implemented GASB Statement 75, which is called Other Post-Employment Benefits. It basically relates to retiree health insurance, and so an actuary was engaged to determine what that liability is that was recorded on your financial statements. Just past the independent auditor's report is the management's discussion and analysis. It's on its own separate page numbering as it gets inserted into the final document as the village prepares it. So it begins on page MD&A 1. This serves as the executive summary of the document. It's the one place in the audit report that you as the village can give input into explaining the whys of the financial statements and explanations for changes from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19. So we review that, make sure it's consistent with those GASB standards and with the financial statement presentation. There's a lot of really good information in here. If you don't have a chance to read the entire annual financial report, I would encourage you to read the management discussion and analysis. It goes for 13 pages. After those 13 pages, you'll come to the first audited financial statement, which is on regular page number 4. It's titled The Statement of Net Position. So GASB's created what I like to refer to as global view financial statements that are prepared on a full accrual basis. Most of your funds are in governmental activities, except for your water and sewer operations is in the business type activities. This statement, along with the statement on pages 5 and 6, are required to receive that unmodified opinion. But I don't usually spend a lot of time covering this because what you're used to seeing is information on a fund basis, which begins on page 7 and 8. Page 7 and 8 is the balance sheet for governmental funds. The focus here is on fund balance. You have your three largest funds are presented in their own separate column, the general motor fuel tax and the bond debt service. All of your other funds are aggregated into the non-major governmental fund column based on the GASB rules, based on the size of the funds. If we focus on fund balance is the amount of reserves that you had at April 30th to begin the fiscal year that you're operating in now. And you can see your general fund balance is just over $733,000, which is about between 3 and 4 months of reserves based on your expenditures during the fiscal year. And you'll note that all fund balances are positive throughout all of your funds. How you got to those ending fund balance numbers, we can see the activity for the year on pages 10, facing pages 10 and 11. This is the revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for the year. If we focus on your main operating fund, the general fund, you'll see your revenues were $2,498,000 with expenditures of $2,489,000. At the end of the day, you had an increase in fund balance for the year of $138,000, including the sale of some assets that are reported under other financing sources. Your other main operating fund can be found on page 15, your water and sewer fund. This is presented on a full accrual basis, so it shows a charge for depreciation, which is the allocation of the costs of your capital assets over the life of those assets. Your operating income for the year was just over $366,000. Your increase in the net position was $354,000. Some will want to look at since this is on a full accrual basis, to see what the cash flow was on that water and sewer fund. You can see the cash flow on page 16. You had cash from operating activities, meaning the dollars that you received for the charges, for the services that you provided in excess of the operating costs going out was about $395,000, which allowed you to purchase additional dollars, and then there were some interfund transfers that were required for some capital purchases that were shared with the governmental funds. So you did have an increase in cash in the water and sewer fund of $294,000 during the year. Just one of the notes to the financial statements to bring to your attention on page 25, note number 2, the second paragraph talks about, and this is a note on cash and investments of the village, there's a note that discusses custodial credit risk. Custodial credit risk is the risk that if any of the financial institutions that the village has deposits at were to go out of business, would you get your money back? There's 2 ways to get your money back as a local government: FDIC insurance, and then collateral pledge by the institution and safe kept at a third party. One of the procedures that we perform is to make sure that all your deposits are collateralized in accordance with your investment policy, and we had no exceptions to that test. So you're doing exactly what you should be doing under your investment policy. The last thing I want to show you this evening is information about the pension plan, which is on pages 47 and 48. The Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund is where your full-time employees participate. Page 47 shows you the dollars contributed versus what the actuary recommended, and you'll see that each and every year those numbers match, because it's a statutory provision that you're required to fund that actuarially determined rate each and every month. It makes it a very well-funded plan. That number correlated to 13.2% of payroll across the fiscal year, which is 2 calendar years for IMRF. The other way to look at the health of pension plan is on page 48. This shows the pension liability versus the assets in the plan. So the pension liability, the simplest way to understand that is you take all of the active employees participating in the plan, plus beneficiaries that are drawing a benefit from the plan. The actuary makes assumptions about when everyone's going to retire, how long they're going to draw a benefit, and comes up with a number, and then they present value that number back to December 31st, 2018. Your total pension liability, that first double underscore in the far right-hand column, is just over $9,087,000. Planned fiduciary net position is just GASB's fancy way of saying assets at market value. So we draw a line in the sand at December 31st, 18, which was IMRF's fiscal year. Their actuaries draw a line in the sand, and the value of those assets was the next double underscore of $7,126,000. That left you with a net pension liability of $1,961,000 and a funded percentage of 78%. We look and we say, but that's down 12% over the year before. The reason for that is because you're measuring the assets at market value as required by GASB, and there was a significant market correction in December of 2018, and that's when the markets went down. So you can see the net investment income line was negative $437,000 in 2018, positive $1.1 million in 2017. So that's what caused that decrease from 90 to 78%. 78% is still a well-funded pension plan, nothing to be alarmed about. The good news is that even though you had one bad year of investment returns, it doesn't change your funding for IMRF unless you have multiple bad investment years, because your funding percentage is based on a 5-year smooth average of those investment earnings. The last page I bring to your attention is page 49. And this was just the information that I mentioned, that new actuarial valuation. There's 2 ways that GASB looks at OPEB. There's one that I particularly look at, and that just relates to any explicit liabilities for any duty disabilities is what causes the liability here. This liability is recorded. It's just part of your budget process. You don't fund for it in advance. There's only a couple of significant municipalities in the state that even fund for this, and that's because they have a lot of explicit subsidies that they need to fund in advance for. In conclusion, the audit went smoothly and on time. You should know that the village staff are very professional and provided us all the information that we needed for the audit. With that, I would open it up to any questions that you might have.
Any questions? John, any comments?
Brian, how do we compare to other municipalities in the state with, we got a clean opinion. with the integrity of our reporting, where do we stand with other towns?
You know, a lot, municipalities this size are, you know, is struggling to determine how do we have revenue sources to provide the services that we're providing. So you're moving right along, similar to a lot of other municipalities your size. You're doing well with the resources that you have.
But the integrity of our reporting, I mean, we're meeting the government standards, we're meeting your standards. Is there anything that we need to be alarmed with or concerned about in the future?
No, the one thing I would comment on is you're similar to other municipalities your size in that it's not like you have this large staff that you're going to be able to have the perfect checks and balances. This board plays a key role in that, and that's one of the things that we commented on, is that your role in oversight to compensate for those lack of segregation of duties becomes very important. So you're reviewing bill lists and those kinds of things is a critical piece of the control process, and we ultimately looking to you all as the leaders to be able to provide that compensation is very important.
Yeah, 2 members of the board sign every check.
Correct.
That goes out, and it's, I don't know if often is the right word, but periodically, one of the 2 will not sign to get more information. So that is part of our check and balance being a small
Absolutely,
board.
and that's a critical role, and that's very important.
And I think it's important for our residents to know that the board is actively involved with monitoring where the money's going. We require live signatures on every check. A lot of towns have the pre-printed signatures. We don't allow that. They approve every check. And then at the board meeting, complete bill listing is in the board packet, which is on our website, and they approve the warrant list, which a lot of other towns don't necessarily do. So that's just, it's important because we are holding the public trust with regards to finance. I want to compliment the board on their role in this, so thank you.
Speaking of the website, this audit will be available after the
It will
meeting?
be posted Friday or Monday. The management letter also, so you'll get to see our dirty laundry, so to speak, and not that we have any, and the full audit itself.
Right, I want to go back. You talked about the pension funding, and we're at 78.42, which you said was okay. Is there a rule of thumb? What is average or typical? And again, last year we were at 90%, and you mentioned the investments, but is there a rule of thumb?
I would say the general rule of thumb that anything over 65 to 70% is a well-funded plan. You never really have to be 100%. You're only 100% for a day until everyone works another day. Being 100% funded would only mean if we had to pay out all the benefits right away. This is a pension plan in perpetuity. It's well managed by IMRF. The IMRF plan is one of the most well-recognized and well-respected pension plans in the country. And because of the statutory provision that the funding is mandatory on a monthly basis. That's where some of the other pension plans in Illinois and around the country have struggled because it was not mandatory funding.
So when people hear about pension fund issues, that's not the IMRF and
They're
not
They're not talking about IMRF. They might be upset because the markets went down, but that affects everyone. That doesn't just affect IMRF. Everyone lost money in December of 2018, unless you were entirely in fixed income securities.
I want to thank you and your firm for your work. I also want to thank Helia, our finance manager, and John for his work, and the whole team. I don't know if financial management is our #1 job, but it is certainly up there. And I know in talking to the board, we all take that very seriously. And we are trying very hard to be good stewards, have a capital plan for ongoing projects, and limit payroll and all the things that we're trying to do to manage the money. So thank you, and thank you, Helia and John. Any other questions or comments? Anything else?
Motion to accept.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We could have a motion to accept the audit and management letter as presented by the village auditor.
I'll make a motion to accept the audit and management letter as presented by the village auditor.
Second.
Thank you, Brenda and Rita. And we're gonna do a voice vote, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, that motion has carried. Thank you. Moving on to the next item.
Reject tree bids.
The rejection of tree bids. John, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Thank you again, Brian.
Motion, please.
Could we have a motion for rejecting the tree bids?
I make a motion to reject the sole bid received for the village's tree removal program.
I'll second.
Thank you, Rita and Amy. John, now you?
Yes, the village bids out tree removal services for trees in the right-of-way. We do this every couple years. We got one bid this year. It was much higher than expected, so I'm recommending that the board reject the bid, and staff will be rebidding this project. It's just a matter to save the village money and have known pricing for our tree removal program.
John, what do we go out to bid for, over what amount?
We go out to bid for anything over $10,000
And that's a year,
a
correct?
year. And this is a multi-year project, so we go to the market periodically for things like this, so yes.
Any questions for John about the tree bid? Okay, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Farrell Mayor.
Aye.
Trustee Wittenberg.
Aye.
Trustee Conboy.
Aye.
And Trustee O'Laughlin.
Aye.
That motion has carried. Thank you. On to item C, cafe license and outdoor sales of alcoholic beverages. John, is this you?
Yeah, this is just a discussion item. No action is requested tonight. We received a request from the Driftwood Cafe, which is in Indian Head Plaza. They wish to have tailgating events at their facility, basically in conjunction with Chicago Bears games. We don't allow the outdoor drink sale of alcohol. So if you go to Wolf's Head, they have a little patio area that's somewhat enclosed. Yeah, you can order a drink there, but you really can't sell alcohol outside the four walls of the establishment. Driftwood Cafe would like to have sale in a Bloody Mary cart outside on the sidewalk, have a little area for people to congregate, do the bags, tournament, things of that nature. And so it's kind of like, well, it's not allowed in our ordinance. Seems like it might be something that a business-friendly community would do. However, there are issues with having people having alcohol so close to their cars, drinking and driving, so there's some public safety issues that we need to weigh. Thought we'd have a discussion about it. So that is kind of where we are.
And John, I received this map or diagram and I don't know if you had enough time. I know I just got it. Did the board get this?
No, they did not.
All right, so I'll just show everybody. They kind of outlined where stuff was going to go. I know it's kind of hard to see, so we can
And
pass it
they
down.
talk about a tent, we think we can identify it on the map, but no. It's a matter of debate.
Well, I've been to that premises, and there's very little room on the sidewalk
Right.
to do something like this. And then I think there's the issue of, are we gonna allow them to do something that might be against their lease? I mean, the parking lot there is for the use of all tenants in that parking, in that mall, not just them.
Well, they look like from that diagram that they are allocated 9 parking spots. So I don't know, that those are dedicated to them, and maybe each business has 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 9. But they seem to reference that they have 9 spots, and that's what they plan on using.
Where do their patrons park?
Well, I think in the evening, that's part of the beauty of being in that kind of development. The dry cleaner may not have business in the evening, so that you could park in those spots. I have been there in the evening, and almost all the spots are full, right, between Wolf's Head and them. and the other establishments there. So that's a good question.
I believe that, like Kenny's, how they have an outside patio, and that I would be all for that, but there is no outside patio, so just they have it in the parking lot, I would not be for that at all.
And in the map, they have some sort of fencing or barricade. Sean, you're looking at, I think there's something like a sawhorse or something.
Yeah, it's basically police tape.
Yeah. So you would, Brenda, if I understand what your comment is, if it was permanent or a wall, much like Wolf's Head has the landscaping blocks on the sidewalk, and it's,
Right, where it's more confined.
yeah.
Versus having it out in the open parking lot, because when it's in the parking lot, I mean, anything's gonna be happening, and people are gonna be driving, other people besides, exactly. I would have a big concern for the safety of other people.
And I think they have a whole TV venue in the bar, so I would assume they would be watching the game in the bar, not in the parking lot, so.
That, once I received their information, and I think we all got this report of what they wanted, right? I asked, like, is TV outside, and I didn't get an answer for that. So, yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Any other comments? Sean, anything? All right, so I'm hearing hesitation or need more information. Is that fair
Yes,
at this
fair.
point?
Yep.
John, is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, the local tax on gasoline purchases. We need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion for ordinance 219-18, an ordinance authorizing the village to adopt a municipal fuel tax pursuant to 65 ILCS 5.8-11 to 2.3.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Amy and Brenda. Okay, John, can you give us
Yes.
some information, please?
Up until June of this year, the state of Illinois only allowed home rule municipalities to tax on a local level gasoline sales. The city of Countryside is a home rule community. They have a 4% tax on gasoline, which is allowed by their statutory authority. So the Shell station at Joliet and Willow Springs Road tax on a 4 cent a gallon tax on gasoline sales. The state of Illinois is now allowing non-home rule municipalities to do up to 3 cents a gallon on the sales of gasoline. We have one gas station in town. If the board were to implement this tax, I estimate between $30,000 and $45,000 a year in additional revenue to the village that could only be used for our road program. Again, it falls under the motor fuel tax, so we are restricted by state statute, actually by constitutional amendment to do this, so that would just go into our road fund. It's a revenue source that we desperately need, and it's for your consideration. If to implement this, we would, after we pass the ordinance, we have to send it to the Department of Revenue. So we're looking at 3 or 4 months in the future before the revenue starts coming in.
Any questions? Comments? Clerk Allison, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Wittenberg.
Aye.
Trustee O'Laughlin.
Aye.
Trustee Farrell Mayor.
Aye.
Trustee Conboy.
Aye.
That motion has been approved. Thank you. The next item, last under the new business, is the discussion, the state of Illinois cannabis legislation. John?
I will start on this, and then our village attorney can chime in. Right now, we're at the process stage of discussion of the cannabis. When the state of Illinois has allowed municipalities, or is allowing for the sale and use of cannabis in the state effective January 1st, right now, with the board if the board does not do anything, a cannabis facility could come into the village and open up under our existing zoning laws as a retail business. The ordinance the board has two choices. We can go down the approval path and tax it and regulate it, or the board can say, no, we don't want to allow cannabis sales dispensaries in the village and cannabis operations. So that's where we are right now. So the village attorney has drafted ordinances for the village allowing either one, either the denial or the allowing of cannabis sales. Right now, we're talking about the process of whether or not we should allow cannabis sales. This is slated for a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 1st. It's a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. The issue is, if we allow it, how will we regulate it? Obviously, we would recommend the 3% tax that's allowed by law, but where should it go if we decide to allow it to happen? That's kind of where we are right now with the process. So if we don't do anything, to recap, cannabis, once the state issues a license, then a company could come in and open up a shop. It's a two-part process. The state issues a license, and then the municipality has to say, okay. We saw in Naperville, a license was issued by the state or granted by the state, but the City of Council of Naperville has said no for the time being. I hear that it might come back, but the municipality always has the right to say no, and they have the ultimate authority to deny. Pat, am I missing anything?
Ordinances which are before you. Again, this is not an action item for tonight. Public hearing is set for the land use side of it for October 1st. As you recall from our last discussion, when the state enacted this legislation, they control the licensing. There is no local licensing for these types of facilities. The one bit of municipal authority that they did leave to the locals is the land use authority. So there is the option to quote-unquote opt out, which would not allow any dispensaries, infusers, craft grower type facilities in the village. The other option is to allow, subject to regulation, and the regulations, some proposed regulations, which will be the subject of the public hearing. That is that the medical cannabis license holders go through some strict scrutiny with the state. So that would ensure that if the policy decision was made to allow for a dispensary, that they would have been thoroughly vetted, again, given the fact that local licensing is precluded by the state act. So, and then of course the 3% tax ordinance is in there. It's by the statute allowed to be in 0.25% increments. I've not heard of any municipality that's doing any less than 3%. And so those are the documents that are in there. Again, if there's any preliminary questions, this is not before you for a vote tonight. This was, again, pursuant to the direction that was at the last meeting to get more information to the board, and stand ready to answer any questions.
One item I did not say, we don't know what the revenue potential for this is. I've heard anything from, which would be more realistic. Also, because of the licensing process with the state, we're talking probably a year at least from now before this could ever become before the village. If somebody were interested in getting a license and locating in the village and getting state approval. So we're really trying to plan for the future.
Well, in revenue, as I understand it, John, may depend on where the closest store is, if we allowed it and if we went
Correct.
down that path. So if one is across the street in Countryside, it may be different than if it's 5 miles away.
Correct, right. Or if we're on the state line next to a university.
How many total dispensaries are they permitting?
Ultimately, 550 over the course of 2 or 3 years.
It is, and the current medical license holders are getting a priority as it relates to the first rollout of the licenses.
I know at the last board meeting, we had a trustee request information, some sort of community input. And so there is a survey on the village website. Encourage everybody to visit that and click on either allow the sale of adult cannabis or not. And then I think, I know for me, but I think anybody, if you want to contact Any other comments? For this point, again, that will be at the planning and zoning meeting next month, right?
Yep.
The public hearing. Okay. I think we're gonna move along to trustees' report. Sean?
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Amy?
Brendan, I would like to remind everyone that we have the picnic and the flick this Saturday in the park, Black Hawk Park. We are doing an event with C-Spar, and we'd like to invite all of you to come see Mary Poppins and also have a picnic with us at 6:30 is the picnic, followed by, at dusk, we will have the movie in the park.
And I bring a lawn chair or a blanket? What do I bring?
Blankets, lawn chairs, the kids bring their sleeping bags and all that, so come on and join us.
And
Don't forget your bug spray.
Definitely.
And just to piggyback onto that, there will also be cotton candy, popcorn, hot dogs, and some type of salad that will be served as well.
and is that free, or do I purchase a hot dog or whatever?
It's all free. It's on
Wonderful.
behalf of C-Spar.
And beverages, so,
They will have some water in that, but if you want a certain beverage or that, you should bring your own.
all right, so Amy, I think that's you. Brenda, I don't know if that was your, any report or update?
No, that is it, thank you.
Rita? Anything to add? No, I don't. Never mind. Okay, village clerk. Thank you. Village treasurer? Thank you. Village attorney?
Nothing further.
Village administrator? John?
Yes,
You
sir.
have a few things.
Yes. You may know that we do something called local adjudication, which is basically local court. And it's on the third Wednesday of every month at 9:30. The basis of this is to take the low-level ordinance violations and bring them before a local adjudicator who is an administrative law judge. And rather than going to Bridgeview and going through the county process, we have things happen here in the council chambers. We've had one case so far of a box truck on Pontiac. We will be having other cases come before us, usually parking tickets, things of that nature. So just letting the people know that this is a process that we have in place. It was a slow rollout. We wanted to make sure that it's going well, and it is. So that's what's going on with adjudication.
And the adjudicator, independent, can you go over?
The adjudicator is an independent person appointed by the village board. She is a lawyer who's gone through training on local adjudication. She is very well experienced. She has a couple of other clients, and she has a pretty good demeanor. Our goal with adjudication is compliance, not to make money. In fact, in the budget, we have basically it's revenue neutral. A lot of towns do use this as a cash cow. We don't. We would rather have people complying with the law rather than making money on it. So we're still waiting for the box truck on Pontiac to leave. That's going through the process again. So that's kind of where we are with adjudication. The other thing that staff is looking at is we are looking at a garbage franchise and leaf pickup in the village. Right now, everybody is on their own for garbage pickup, except if you're in the homeowners associations, you have that taken care of through your HOA. But if you live in a non-OHO area, you pay Groot usually quarterly. You pay them a certain fee. We believe that we could probably garner a better price for everybody in the village if we were to have a franchise where we would give one company the ability to operate and pick up garbage in the village. At first blush, it looks like those communities around us that have a franchise pay a little bit less than people in town pay on their own. So that's one advantage of having a franchise is lower costs.
But
for
John,
everybody.
you got into the franchise not for that reason. You got in because the board, one of the goals was to seek about leaf pickup, right?
Correct.
All
So
right.
this is kind of morphing into this. So one of the things we used to do several years ago was we would pick up leaves. Now, primarily, this is on the west side of town. But we're looking at having a leaf pickup program, and we used to do it with staff internally, and the makeup of our public works staff now, I don't think it's the best use of their time for leaf collection, so we would be looking to outsource the leaf collection, and usually this goes hand in hand with a franchise agreement, so that's kind of where I'm morphing into a franchise agreement for garbage. So we're still investigating seasonal leaf pickup. It's probably a 6 to 8 week window in the fall, and we would be looking at doing the entire village, including the HOA areas where I know that you do it right now. Some of you have it right now. We would be working with you to hopefully reduce your costs as well for leaf pickup. So that's where we're headed right now. And my intern, Andy, is still working on this diligently.
When do you think you will have the options, or?
We'll probably have something by November of this year, and then we're looking for action in February, March of next year to implement it in October of next year.
And other things that you may be looking at, like an amnesty day, a spring cleanup?
Correct.
Branches, some of the things that we've
Right.
heard over
We don't
time.
have branch pickup. Most municipalities have something of that nature. I know in the town I live in, it's done 2 or 3 times a year where you just put out your branches and Public Works comes by and picks them up. We're looking at that. That's a very popular item, by the way, or after a major storm. The amnesty day that the mayor mentioned is you get to put out anything you want on one day, refrigerator, desk, usually not electronics, and it's picked up for free. So usually that's included in a franchise agreement. So we're investigating, may not come to pass, but at least we'll have some knowledge on it. My last item for
What's the timing on that, John, for the franchise information?
like I said, probably November, we would have a recommendation to you. And if the board wishes, we would move forward and probably bid it out in January, February of next year.
Thank you.
My last thing is the water main and road project update. We're getting near the end and we posted this on social media today. But tomorrow, Shabana and Pontiac and near Tecumseh, the water services will be switched over to the new main, so there will be outages in that area tomorrow on select homes. You should have gotten a door hanger on your house if you're gonna be without water. And then Saturday, we're gonna do Black Hawk area and Wabansie again, and then also on Saturday, parts of, in 45 acres on Thunderbird Drive will be, the water will be turned off temporarily while we make the switch over. We should be wrapping all of this up on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, we're gonna do general cleanup, remove old hydrants, things of that nature, and then road paving should start probably by the end of September, and this includes areas in your subdivision, Karen, Indian Ridge Lakes, Indian Ridge, and then part of Acacia, Cherrywood, Cherrywood. So that should be happening. It has to be done by October 15th, and then restoration will happen at that time too.
So John, all houses are on the new water system, is that correct?
They will be as of Monday of next week. Some of them have already been transferred over, and then we will, after that, we will abandon the old main. We're gonna leave it in place, and it will just drain
Which is normal
normally.
to leave it in
Right,
place. That's
otherwise,
what-
it's a lot more money to pull it out and put in the fill.
And then you mentioned fire hydrants, so as part of the new main, there are new fire hydrants, and the old fire hydrants will be cut off and removed.
Now, that presents another issue for the village. So we're gonna have 20 to 30 old fire hydrants. It's public property, and to dispose of it, we need to pass an ordinance, which you'll get probably in a month or so, to get rid of. We've had some requests from residents. They want to have one for their backyard. So we'll make that available for a resident to purchase or just give it to the resident.
Well,
if
we'll
they
talk
want.
about that at the
Yes,
board, because
right.
it is an asset to
Correct, and
dispose of.
I do not have the authority to just give it away. So, anyway, but it's kind of funny, somebody just asked one of our public works guys, can they have a hydrant? And they're like, Sure, but we gotta ask. So,
All right, so when does the cleanup happen if, through the work, say my driveway was damaged or something?
If your driveway was damaged, it has to happen before October 15th. That's part of the contract. What we did was we videoed the construction area before construction, so we know the condition of everything beforehand. So if a piece of equipment was parked on your driveway and your driveway cracked because of that piece of equipment, we're gonna fix it, or the contractor is.
And we're also gonna repair, shrubbery.
Or lawns that
bushes,
were damaged.
Or
Anything-
sprinkler systems, or
Correct.
electric dog fences.
So the mayor is referring to a list that we have internally, that all the trustees have access to. When somebody calls to complain, we file it in the complaint file. And it's on the spreadsheet, and if there's damage, we make note of the damage, and we'll take action accordingly. We let the contractor know. They are responsible to make things right, and we will withhold money from them if
So
they don't.
the big news, though, is there will still be a mess until the road is done.
Yeah.
And that is supposed to be done by October 15th.
Correct, and then there are cash penalties if they are beyond October 15th.
And the reason why we picked that date was mostly weather, right?
Correct. If we get beyond that, then blacktop, the laying of blacktop could become problematic. And we don't want to be laying blacktop when it's 40 degrees outside and rainy.
Anything else?
It's been a mess. We appreciate your patience, and we have to clean it up.
Anything else? All right, John, I have a question. I touched on Wolf Road. Do you have an update on the Phase 1?
We're still waiting to hear back from the county. We've reached out to multiple people at the county, and they haven't gotten back to us yet. I think next week, if we don't hear anything back, we will reach out to the county board president and let her know that, hey, this is what's going on.
Yeah, John's called people, I've called people, we've sent emails.
Village attorney has.
I just believe they don't have an answer yet, so they're not calling back, which is not great, but that's sometimes how the county operates. How about the Wolf Road patch update?
The same thing with the county. We're still waiting to hear back.
And the board passed that a couple months ago?
Two meetings ago.
And our goal was to try to get what the county told us they wanted to do was we initiate it.
Correct.
We get the work done. How much did we pass? Do you remember? Was it 50 or 60,000?
It was in the $60,000 range.
And then we would get the work done and then get reimbursed, but we haven't heard back from that either. And just like with our roads, there is a deadline when we'd want to get that done for weather. All right, and then, John, one last update while I'm asking for updates. We had talked about, with the county and the 294, a section of sidewalk along Plainfield Road. Any update on that?
No, they're still progressing with plans. They are at 60% plans right now. They did give us a bridge rendering, which I'll put on the website for the Plainfield Road Bridge. Just in general, the bridge has been named the Kelly Joy O'Loughlin Memorial Bridge. And the village will be maintaining for snow removal and garbage pickup on the bridge. And in exchange for that, the county will be extending a sidewalk from the bridge to connect with the sidewalk that's on the south end of Plainfield Road. So a sidewalk is coming in that area also, or a pedestrian pathway. So that's where we are right now, but there's nothing more than most of the plans are done.
And that bridge will have a sidewalk or pedestrian path on both sides.
Correct.
But we're only talking on our
The south
side
side,
of
yes,
the bridge,
for
the
us,
south
yes.
side of the bridge. All right, thank you. Chief, police report, thank you for being very patient. The best for last.
All right, good evening. For the month of August, we had a total of 1,095 capers entries. Of that number, 230 were non-initiated calls, 77 were officer-initiated calls, and we conducted 788 premise checks and community contacts. We worked a total of 1,666 hours for the month. Overtime was at 113.25. Traffic citations, wrote a total of 96 traffic citations. Of that number, 43 were state violations, 50 were ordinance violations, and 3 warning tickets. Training was conducted last month for less lethal weapon options, Illinois Criminal Code review, United States Supreme Court decisions, and basic investigator.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, at this point in the meeting, we have public comments, so this is last chance for tonight. Anybody like to address the board? Amy?
Just a quick question, and maybe I missed it. When you passed the ordinance for the local tax on gasoline, is there a percentage in there?
3.
3%.
per gallon.
Okay, thanks.
Is that we get 30 and we're gonna get an additional 18, is that the right?
No, we expect between $30,000 and $45,000 a year on this tax. The state of Illinois also passed a gas tax increase, which we will also see an increase in our motor fuel tax allocation sometime soon. So the state is committing money to infrastructure, especially roads, and that will help us tremendously with our road program.
And the motor fuel tax, I was talking today, we get $13 a person, $30 a person, is that right?
Yes, and it's
And-
gonna go up to like $48.
So adding an additional 18,
Yeah.
which is a pretty big increase. And again, that's by person,
Correct.
so it's not about gas sold or anything like
Correct.
that.
So the census that's coming up next year, it's very important that everybody in the village get counted, because the more people we have, the more money we get.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, would a trustee like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Rita and Sean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. It has been approved. We are done at 8:27.